you can ask a 2-year-old, what do you need to do to take care of your teeth? And they will say, brush them, but what do we need to do to take care of our ocular hygiene? And putting that on the TED stage was my goal.
Hey there, it's Dr. Ryan Corte, and I'm looking for North Carolina licensed optometrists or those interested in becoming licensed in the state of North Carolina to join my team. If that's you or somebody you know, reach out to me on social media or email me at ryan.court1@gmail.com. Now, enjoy today's episode. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Ryan Reflects. My name is Dr. Ryan Corte, and today I'm here with a special guest, Dr. Pam Theriot, who is going to let us in on a little secret, something that she's been working on behind the scenes, but also somebody who has been doing an incredible job educating our profession at large on a lot of really cool things, particularly a high-level focus on the anterior segment. So, Pam, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Ryan. I'm so glad to be here.
Well, it's one of those things that whenever I get to connect with colleagues and they're doing things like you're doing, it gets me excited because I feel like I learn so much from all those people in our profession, particularly those like yourself that are really preaching positive messages and innovative ways to provide more value to our patients and to provide more value within our practices. So for those who don't know you though, Pam, I'd like to just kind of dive right in. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm an optometrist and a dry eye specialist. I've been practicing optometry this will be my 24th year. I went to the University of California at Berkeley, go Bears, and love my alma mater. So glad to have spent that time at Berkeley when I did. And since my career began, I married my optometry school sweetheart a couple of years after optometry school, and he was career military. He is retired now, which meant that my career had to transition state to state to state. So my husband was an Air Force pilot, and that meant that we moved every 2 to 3 years. So I had to recreate my practice and my patient base every 2 to 3 years for the first 20 years of my career. So that was some of the impetus for where I've come to today, is that moving state to state to state and learning new things and working in new practices.
What was that like? Because every time you moved, I'm assuming you had to you had to make sure that you were licensed in the state you were practicing in. You had to get re-credentialed, most likely with a new practice. You had to become familiarized with a new region, serving a new patient population. What was that like?
It was crazy, but I took the mindset of wherever we lived was home. And really, because you're only there for a few years, just absorb it, soak it in, find something to love about it. I grew up in Southern California, and it doesn't snow in Los Angeles. And at one point we moved to Syracuse, New York. The first day it snowed, which was in October, by the way, the first day it snowed, I was at the front desk, like shaking, going, how am I going to get home? And the staff just looked at me like, your car, Theriot, come on, get in your car. You don't have to walk. And I was like, what if it doesn't stop at the stop sign? Like, I was almost in tears, so scared to drive in the snow. And so, having to embrace the new environment, but also the laws. That was something that was frustrating. Was, you could prescribe glaucoma drops in one state, and then you go to another state, and you're not a certified glaucoma specialist. And now I can't prescribe something I've been prescribing for the past 10 years. Moving to upstate New York, they didn't have orals. Like, no optometrist could prescribe a pill when I lived there. So it was interesting.
I can only imagine that going from state to state to state, particularly, so I'm from the Midwest, born and raised in Michigan. I now practice in the state of North Carolina, and snow means a different thing to the melting pot that is North Carolina. I mean, we have people from all over the country that have resided here. People relocated from the north, people come up from the south, people move over from the west. It's really kind of scary because you may be comfortable on the road. I'm comfortable on the road with snow, but that doesn't mean the driver next to me. That's not always the case with some of the northern cities. So you must have been one of those kind of anomalies to that. They're like, who is this woman? Like, why can't she
White
drive in
knuckling,
this?
driving
Yeah.
5 miles an hour, braking 20 feet before the stop sign. Yeah, that was me. Sorry, I'm annoying.
No, but I can also imagine how humbling it was going from a state that had the highest amount of professional autonomy in regards to scope of practice, and then going back to some other states that were really restricted. So what was the greatest scope of practice that you've practiced in, and what was the one that was the most restricted?
So I would say where I am currently in Louisiana is the most broad. We can prescribe many things. We can do SLT, YAG capsulotomy. We can do injections, lumps and bumps. So we have a broad scope of practice here because a lot of the state is rural. And the most restrictive, I guess I'd probably say, was New York not having orals. But I also practiced for a short period of time in Texas and knew that I would only be there for a short period of time. And having that glaucoma specialty certification wasn't something I was interested in getting because I knew I was only going to be there for a short period of time. So not being able to prescribe glaucoma medications when I've been, treating glaucoma for 15 years was definitely weird.
That is strange. That is really strange. So then, how did this, essentially this relocation, this constant, you're always on the move, how did that kind of shape your expertise? Because over time, you've kind of found your niche, right? And you've really started to hunker down and focus on a particular area. So tell me a little bit about that. How did that evolve throughout this process?
Right. So as I moved, it always came to be that the next best place to get a job was in an ophthalmology practice. So then I had this stream of jobs where I was working, ironically, with the head of the Department of Ophthalmology for the medical school that was in the town that I lived in. So I ended up working with a lot of cornea specialists over the years, and I already had quite a love of dry eye. I was a dry eye sufferer myself. We lived in New Mexico and Arizona, Arizona twice. So I had a lot of experience being in a desert climate. And then ironically in Syracuse, where it rains more than it does in Seattle, but because it's freezing so much of the year, it's also very dry in the winter, which is like 8 months of the year is wintertime there. Being from Michigan, you probably understand what I'm talking about. And the
And
heaters,
relate. Yeah.
yes. So I began to love dry eye and wanting to know ways that I could help my dry eye patients. And so I explored that in depth. And then it came to the point where we moved where we currently are in Louisiana. And I really had a great patient base where I had been in Arizona, and I felt really attached to those patients. And I wanted to continue working with them. And I thought to myself, like, how could I build something where it didn't matter what zip code we were in and I could still see patients? Now, this was before telehealth and telemedicine where it is
Hmm.
today in 2024. We moved here in 2015, so 9 years ago. What did that look like? And so I decided to write a book about how to care for your dry eye using lifestyle changes, so that you didn't need a doctor. You could just do over-the-counter products and lifestyle recommendations to build new habits, have a healthier lifestyle, and have eyes that were more comfortable.
Pam, we will definitely link to that book in the show notes. And it's one that I've actually had the opportunity to take a look at. But I want to step back here for a second because I graduated in 2012. And since that time period, like the dry eye talk was heating up. But holy cow, the evolution of the treatment and management of ocular surface disease over the past 10, maybe 15 years has completely exploded. So when did you jump into that? Basically, when did you jump on that train and what did that look like for you?
Yeah, it was in 2006 or seven, I want to say. I was living in New Mexico and my husband was um, in a remote tour. So he was in Korea and was not allowed to bring family with him because of the base that he was at. So we were separated. By time, space, zip code, all the things. And I wanted to do something to keep myself busy while he was away. And I decided that I was living in New Mexico. I was going to train for a marathon. So I was working at a optometry practice. I was running all the time on the weekends, trying to build up my miles. And so I was outdoors in New Mexico where it is very, very dry. And I got very intolerant to my contact lenses, intolerant to my makeup because dry environment, spending lots of time outdoors and approaching 30, I guess. I was so old back then, And so, um, all those things like really started to compound. So I was intolerant to my contact lenses, and I felt really embarrassed being an eye doctor, not able to wear contact lenses. Like I couldn't heal myself. I couldn't tolerate things that I was prescribing to my patients all day long. And
Mhm.
so, that's when the love of dry eye and helping the patients that I was seeing then, Restasis just came on the market. So Restasis and punctal plugs, artificial tears, right? That's what I had, and that's what I went in with.
I mean, we did not have a lot at that point. So you kind of got in at the ground floor when things were just heating up. And to now see it where it is now, you're a speaker, you speak all across the country, let alone the world. You do, all sorts of webinars and you're on podcasts all the time talking about your passion. And you even are putting together and you have recorded a pretty exciting video with a pretty notable company. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yes. So in January of 2025, I was on the TEDx stage in Grandview Heights, which is in Vancouver, Canada. So I gave a TEDx talk to an audience of maybe 100 or 200. But that not being the point is that the TEDx platform will be
Hmm.
putting my video on their YouTube channel, and my video was chosen as an editor's pick. So TEDx is going to be pushing that message out on their own platform, highlighting my video as one to watch. So I'm super excited to get optometry front and center on the TEDx stage with a message with the call to action of schedule an eye exam. That's my call to action. And the topic was really digital eye strain and what can we do in today's modern society to protect our eyes from screens.
I just got goosebumps just hearing you tell me that. And the only other person I know, and I know you know Dr. Harbir Sion, the only person that I know that's an optometrist that's on a TEDx talk is him. Now you, what an incredible opportunity. So tell me a little bit about just the topic at large. I mean, obviously, digital eye strain is something that I think has been discussed by the AOA and a lot of the industry at large. But I think we're truly underselling how much it impacts the quality of life of our patients and particularly in the workplace, right? So tell me a little bit about that.
Right. So there was a study in 2024 that looked at 800 full time workers and surveyed them to see how they felt about their eye health. And 63% of them said that they had at least one eye health issue that was affecting their productivity. And I think that's interesting and very troubling. When the study was broken down, it was like fluctuating vision, inability to focus for long periods of time. And then it went down to all sorts of percentages down to like glaucoma, macular degeneration, which were only 1% to 2% of what people were reporting as an eye health issue. So this inability to focus on our screens is really affecting our workforce. And people are out looking for answers and doing probably really dumb things to help their eyes. So as I've been diving into this, I've been meeting with groups of people, gamers in particular, who are trying to get through their work or their games and doing things like putting water in their eyes. That ain't going to help.
Nope. Sure isn't.
Right? So my frustration, my goal with my TED Talk is that we all know you can ask a 2-year-old, what do you need to do to take care of your teeth? And they will say, brush them. We need toothpaste, toothbrush, mouthwash, and floss. We all know the 4 things to take care of our oral hygiene. But what do we need to do to take care of our ocular hygiene? And putting that on the TED stage was my goal. Unfortunately, you are not allowed to give medical advice from the TED stage. So instead, I talked about a 3-step plan to set yourself up for success and give your eyes the support they need while you're at the workplace.
Well, I'm going to ask you about that 3-step plan in just a second, but I'm curious, what type of phone do you have?
I have an iPhone.
Okay. So I'm sure many people listening in here, they're either Android or iPhone. Both of those devices track screen time. The iPhone in particular, and I think the Android does as well, tracks pickups. I can just be honest, I run between 3, and on a busy week, maybe I'm running more Spotify or something, 3 to upwards of 6 hours a day of screen time just on my phone. And that doesn't include when I'm in clinic looking at screens, going back and forth between talking to the patient and inputting information. How about you? Like, do you ever track that and take a look at that?
Yeah, because I do have an online business and an online platform, I spend a couple of hours every day in the morning on my screen specifically, and a couple of hours at night. So I would say I probably average just 4 hours a day on the computer. Unfortunately, we use paper charts in my office. I know none of you
Okay.
have heard of this pen and paper thing, but that's what we use. So I don't usually touch a screen other than looking at my Optomap images or imaging in the clinic. But definitely, I'm a good 4 hours on computer or my phone throughout the day. And that's for one of us who isn't in we don't have a digital job, right? Like
Yeah.
we don't have to use the computer to do what we do, but we're
I asked
still
that question
using.
at an optometry school, and I got, a wide range. Actually, I asked at a lot of schools when I go in, but I got an answer if somebody was telling me they were like 12 to 14 hours when they start thinking about how often they're watching lectures online or watching YouTube, and they're decompressing and they're watching a video. It's incredible the amount of strain that we are putting on our eyes just from looking at screens. And so you had mentioned kind of a 3-step initiative. Tell me a little bit about that.
Right. So the 3 steps are similar to what an athlete would do before they're going to get ready for a big game. So my stance is that we take our eyes and think about what we can do to support our eyes so that they can help us get through our workday. So the first step is prepare. And that is really preparing your work area, getting lighting so that you're not getting glare back from it, setting up your screen so it's got the best contrast, the best size of font, the best color combinations, really getting that set and preparing to do your work. I compare it to an athlete who might go out, do some high knees, get warmed up, do some stretches. You're going to prepare yourself for the workday. And then the next step is perform. So when you're out on the field playing a game, you're going to do things to your body to get ready for, let's say, you're a sprinter. So you're at the starting blocks and you get ready to take that sprint. So you're doing things to your body. Whereas with our eyes, we can do short breaks while we're on our computer to blink several times, get those meibomian glands. I noticed you were blinking before we went live on this video. You were like, blink, 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 right? Get
You
our
have to.
meibomians going,
We're at the end
getting
of the
that
day right now filming. Yeah.
right. Or you could use some artificial tears or an artificial tear spray just to give yourself a blast of hydration while you're working throughout the workday. And then the final thing is preserve. What are you going to do after the fact to help your body heal, maintain, have the building blocks of healthy tears? So let's go back to the athlete. They would ice their muscles, eat a nutritious meal, get rest, and hydrate, right? So what do we do for our eyes? We can take a nutritional supplement to have building blocks of healthy tears. We could use a warm compress to, revive those meibomian glands, and a lid and lash cleanser, remove all the inflammation from around the eyes, dirt, dust, pollen, and really get those eyes set to sleep, to rest, restore our bodies, and be ready for the next day.
So if I heard you correctly, prepare, perform, and preserve. Is that correct?
Those are the 3 steps. Yeah.
And so that's what our patients can be doing. But I want to be, as a provider, I want to be, instead of being reactive, I want to be proactive. Like, what are some steps that we as, eye care professionals, whether we're optometrists, ophthalmologists listening, support team members, what can we do to prepare our clinic for this big push and this big ask that you're going to be having on the TED Talk stage?
Right. So, as I said in the TEDx video, my call to action that you do kind of towards the end of the talk is schedule an eye exam.
Hmm.
And I was researching the talk. One of the statistics that I came across was that 1 in 10 Americans hadn't had an eye exam in the last 5 years. Right. So, they're going to watch this video and they're going to go, "Oh, you mean like just rubbing my eyes when they get tired on the computer? That's not what I should be doing." And hopefully they're going to schedule an eye exam. So they're going to come into our offices and say, "Hey, what can I do about digital eye strain?" So I've prepared a downloadable PDF for people who will watch the video to, come get the PDF, and it's going to walk them through, well, how do I set up my screen? What do I need to look at as far as brightness controls? What do you mean by blinking your eyes? Don't I just blink? It's like breathing. I'm just breathing. I'm just blinking. And like, walking them through a couple blinking exercises, all in that downloadable handout. And then finally giving some products that you could utilize throughout the workday, artificial tears, lid and lash cleansers, so that they have the products that they need to help their eyes function best.
Well, I really love that. And, I almost think of what you're referencing here in your mission almost like I'm a big meditator. I like to meditate. It's good for you reference breathing, like we breathe naturally, but during certain times of life, times of day, times maybe you get a little bit more tense, or maybe you get a little bit, you're not as focused and your breathing isn't as natural and as consistent as it could be. Well, I know that also when we're looking at screens, when we're consuming content, it's almost the same thing with our eyes, right? It gets a little bit of out of whack. We're not utilizing our blink rate to its natural form. We reduce our blink rate. What does that do? That greatly impacts the ocular surface, the front of the eye, and it really does impact our quality of life, not to mention the rest of the fallout. It can really cause havoc. What are something that these companies could be doing that could be listening in? Because I'm sure there's a lot of companies that are trying to better prepare their employees with, just an overall general wellness initiative. What are some things that they could be doing?
Right. So they could be offering these guides to help them set up ergonomically. How do they sit in front of their computers? What can they do to reduce the strain? Could they be facilitating break times for their employees to go, go outdoors, look far away, and maybe in the break room have some artificial tears hanging out. Little vials, just people rehydrating. There's free coffee in there. Why can't there be some free artificial tears as well? So utilizing the information that we do know on how the digital devices are affecting our bodies and helping their employees, be more productive at work, but also keep their eyes healthier for a lifetime. I think now that mybography is more readily available, more optometrists have that in their clinics. And there's some very inexpensive mybographers available now that we can take a look at the meibomian glands and know how much damage has been done. Being aware of that, showing our patients their glands, how that's going to affect not only the comfort of their eyes, but the clarity of their vision over the long term, and giving them solutions to help restore the function of their meibomian glands is going to be a crucial part of how we practice optometry going forward.
I couldn't agree more. And we do a lot in my practice. We do a lot of wellness outreach. So we'll go to different health fairs, and I can almost see incorporating some kind of screening and helping educate different employee groups on digital eye strain and the impacts, the overall impacts. Could be a great way. Shoot, I'm sure a lot of these companies could bring you in as a keynote and have you, educate their basically their company at large and help drive an initiative, because we do know that if the employees' eyes towards the end of the day are starting to get drier, become more irritated, they're not able to be as impactful, or not able to be as productive. That can decrease overall productivity of a company. It can decrease, overall workplace satisfaction. It can decrease that as well. And so I love what you're doing.
Absolutely.
I
Thank
love
you.
what you're doing. For those who aren't aware, though, in digital eye strain and just how we utilize our eyes throughout the day is kind of broad. Can you kind of dive into just a few of the general ocular diseases or eye diseases that are most common from this strain and from this condition?
Well, I think notably symptoms are going to be irritation, fluctuating vision, stinging and burning, maybe a bit of scratchiness of the eyes. And those are what your patients are going to come in telling you about. Maybe they're relating it to the computer, or maybe they're relating it to the time of the day. Oh, by 4 o'clock, they feel scratchy, they feel irritated. And so then we're doing an exam and looking specifically for meibomian gland dysfunction, a decreased tear meniscus or decreased tear production, blepharitis, and overall keratitis secca, right? Dry eye, front surface of the eye is not being moisturized. And that readily affects the clarity of their vision and their ability to focus throughout the day. Not to mention an increase in myopia in our younger patients and how presbyopia is affecting the workforce going forward with all this time in the near point focus.
Yeah, all that and then some. And I want to go back to just the point earlier that goodness, the actual treatment options that we now have available for ocular surface disease and a lot of the things that tend to come from just our great increase in the amount of time we're putting on screens, digital devices, and just it's all about that reduced blink rate. It's all about the overall sequelae and just the tools that we have in our toolbox. And I love that you're highlighting this. I love that you're driving people into their primary eye health and vision care providers, their optometrists, and of course ophthalmologists, and that you're bringing light to something that, as you referenced, you ask a 2-year-old, hey, what do you need to do to keep your teeth in good shape? Well, what do you need to do to keep your eyes in good shape? We need to follow these steps. So if you could have just a couple final thoughts for the listeners, calls to action, or just something that you want them to be aware of as this great video resource and talk that you have comes out.
Well, I appreciate anyone that sees someone who's seen my video and they schedule an eye exam in your office. Thank you so much for supporting our patients, bringing optometry to the forefront and letting more and more people know that we are the primary eye health providers, that we're the ones to see on a regular basis. And thank you so much for doing that. And to thank you, I would love for you to also have the resource that I'm going to have available to anyone who watches my video. You could download that resource at my website, which is pamtheriot.com. And then if you /TEDx OD, you'll get a non-branded version of that same handout that video watchers will see. And you could brand that to your own clinic and hand it out as something that patients could take home with them to set up their workspaces, to remind them about taking blink breaks. But that resource is available. We'll put it in the show notes as well so that you can click the link, but it's available on my website, pamtheriot.com.
Well, Pam, I'm just gonna link to that in the description. So to make it easy for people, it'll be right there for you to pull up and download. And it's funny you reference. I was blinking a little bit before we got going here with the podcast. It's at the end of the day. My eyes are a little dry. My artificial tears are downstairs. There's probably some airflow fluctuations going on here. So this is constant, and this is just incredible what you're doing. For anybody who wanted to connect with you more on a personal level, is there a best way to do so? Is it the website? Is it your Instagram or your LinkedIn? Or what's the best way for people, especially providers that are intrigued to connect with you?
Absolutely. I would love for you to reach out either on my website. There's a link, info@pamtheriot.com, or on LinkedIn. That's where I love to talk to colleagues, collaborate on initiatives. If you want to talk about digital eye strain or anything dry eye, ocular surface disease related, I would love to have that conversation with you. And so it's just my name, Pam Theriot, which is spelled the Riot. Easy way to remember, Pam the Riot, on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok.
Pam, thank you for taking the time, energy, and effort to do all that you're doing, for connecting with me and jumping on the podcast today. That's it today for the podcast. For anybody who has any questions, please reach out to Pam or myself, and stay tuned for my next podcast where we can reflect and grow stronger together.